when you get yourself in that right headspace, you are opening yourself up to a world of opportunities, and culture comes from that. And culture is the vibe, whatever you want to call it. I would notice all of the time when I was playing music, and I did this for half my life. I would notice when I showed up at a place, if it was a new place, if the door guys were solid, if they were good to be around, then the owner was going to be solid. And if the owner was solid, the door guys were going to be solid. And that is one of those things where you can't track it, you can't trace it, but it trickles all of the way down. Because if you're an owner of a business, if you're in my case, it was bars. If you're an owner of a bar and you've got a harmonious vibe at your bar or restaurant or whatever, then your staff, your bartenders, your cooks, they are going to treat your customers better, and your customers are going to have a better experience. And even if something goes wrong, which it inevitably will, if you've got people that are not miserable at work, then people will give you grace on that. If somebody brings you out the wrong food, or the food's a little bit cold or whatever, if you've got a good rapport with your server, it's not the end of the world. That's not what it's all about. They can fix it. They can make it right. So for me, like, all of this stuff, it comes together, and it makes businesses, it makes companies good to work for or bad to work for. And so finding that place, being the person that is pleasant to be around, that's good to be around, is such a winning strategy. And in Nashville, the talent in that town, one of the things I loved about Nashville was, number one, the talent, but number two, the amount of genuinely good people that were also insanely talented, and people that were self-aware, that were kind, that were from all over the place. And I feel like that is, by and large, the industry. There are dirtbags everywhere, clearly, but one of the things people would talk about was, if you were going to go out on the road, and I was doing my thing where I was going out and playing my own shows, in bars and whatever, but all my friends, they were doing stuff where there was one guy that was a video guy. He'd go out and shoot video for artists that were on the tour. So he'd be out on a bus with guys. And one of my other friends is a guy that does like front of house, or he does monitor mixes, right? So he'll go out. He worked for the band Perry for years. So he'd go out on the road with those guys and run their monitor engineer, right? So all these guys were, they were all working in the industry in some capacity. But what they would tell you is that one of the most important things about getting a job in that space was being a good hang on the bus, right? Like, be a good hang on the bus. Because if you don't know anything about tour buses, they sleep 12 people. And especially if you're in the crew, like, sometimes if you're Taylor Swift, she's probably got 5 buses, right? But her crew, there's 12 people in that thing that are rolling around together. So you're going to learn way more about those people than you want to know. But at the very least, like, everybody in Nashville they were amazing guitarists. They were amazing guitar techs. They were amazing drummers. They were amazing videographers. But there were enough of those people that were so talented that if you were tough to be around on the bus, you didn't last long. And I think that is again, you just take that and you can apply that anywhere. There are people that we all work with that you walk into the office and you love seeing that person because they brighten your day a little bit. That doesn't mean that they're always they're always cheery, but they make you laugh, they make you smile, they make you think. Be that person, because that's the person where if you that person, you end up switching careers, you start your own business, whatever, that's the person that you want to hire. And that is marketing. That's branding. That's your brand. Being easy to be around is a hell of a brand. It's a hell of a marketing play, right? It's incredible. And the other part of it was when it comes down to just being a good shit, as Bill Burr would say, just being a decent human being. When we were my college band, we were big enough in Columbia, Missouri to where when the bands that were touring around would come through and play the Blue Note, which was the 1,000-seat venue, if they didn't have an opener, then the owner would call us and we'd get to open for them, which was incredible. Like, it was a dream come true because you're basically you're playing to a sold out crowd in your hometown. So when you're doing it, I think they paid us like $50 or we were playing for free even. It didn't matter. It didn't matter because we weren't driving anywhere. We didn't care. We got to play in front of the Blue Note. So it number one, they got an opening act at the same, there was overlap, right? And these were bands that were like, if you're old like me, you remember these bands like the Samples, Jacko Pierce, Freddie Jones Band. Like back in the late 90s, it was this radio format. Like you had classic rock was a format, but you also had AAA, which was the format that all of these like college bands would play. And it wasn't like top 40 music. It was like the cool music that the college kids listened to. And they wouldn't necessarily be on the Billboard charts, but they would be selling out places like this. They would sell out the Blue Note in Columbia, the Granada in Lawrence. They would sell out these venues all over the country. And they would have, like you would hear their song maybe on there was a band from Chicago called the Bodines. And their song was the theme song for Party of Five, that TV show, right? So you'd hear their songs, like you'd be at the mall and you'd hear their song like getting played, but they weren't getting played on your top 40 station. But those were the bands that we'd get to open for. And there's two specific instances that I'll tell you. So we got to open for the Samples, which we were all big fans of these guys too. And they were all we were like 20, 21 years old. These guys were all about 30 probably, if I had to guess. So they were old when you're 20 or 21. And Jacko Pierce was another band, same thing. They were, these bands had record deals, they had tour buses, they were legit. And so it was within a month and we were opening for both of those bands and they would both sell at the Blue Note every time. And we opened up for the Samples and I will say this, they were not pleasant. They were not great to the opening act. And we were also aware of the fact, being an opening act, we had to be courteous in the sense that get the hell off stage. Like you don't need to know this if you're not a musician. If you are a musician and you're opening for a band, the only thing that matters to that headlining act is that you get the hell off that stage at the time you're supposed to get the hell off that stage. Like if you're playing from 7 to 7:45, 7:44, thank you, good night, Jacko Pierce is coming up next. Like get the hell out of there, right? That's the only thing you have to do. We were aware of that and we did that. So we were very self-aware of who we were, what we were doing. We didn't think these people were here to see us. We knew they weren't. We knew that we were getting to play in front of this audience and reaping all the benefits, and we were grateful. And so we paid attention to that and got the hell off the stage. So I'll leave it at the fact that the Samples weren't pleasant. But then Jacko Pierce came through. It was crazy because this all happened in like a 2 to 3 month period. It was quick. And not only did those guys, were they great to hang out with, they were super nice. They invited us on their tour bus between sound check and the show. And we were, like I said, we were 21 years old. And to me, I was like, holy shit. I'd never been on a tour bus before. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And to this day, they're the coolest, maybe not the coolest thing I've ever seen, but they're top 10, right? Tour buses are awesome. But it was the experience of not only, now you're getting even closer to like what it was like. And the reason I say that is it made me like their music more. Listen to that for a second. The Samples and Jacko Pierce, I like both of them, especially now it's nostalgic, right? It takes me back to college. But when I listen to the Samples, I always think, these guys are dicks. This guy's a dick. He's miserable. Listen to Jacko Pierce. I buy their solo stuff. These guys, they're doing reunion tours. I buy their t-shirt. So think about that. Just being a decent human being. And the thing of it is, they weren't just a decent human being to me. I was nobody. It's kind of like that. It's that idea that before you hire somebody, you're supposed to take them to lunch so that you can see how they treat the wait staff, right? It's the same. Like these guys, they didn't owe me anything. I owed them something, and they were helpful. They brought us on the bus. They answered our questions. We were asking them. I was like, we were asking questions about production, about touring, about management, about all this stuff. And they just were the coolest guys. And ever since then, they got a fan for life. That is branding. That is marketing. It's not about the logo. Jackal Pierce had a cool logo. But that's the real deal. And so this podcast, if you go to my YouTube page, it says, stop selling, start telling. Like that's the top thing, right? Stop selling, start telling. That's the top thing. But the next thing, it says business mindset and marketing. And to me, all three of those things they're one thing, especially when you're looking at yourself as an individual, if you're an employee of a place or whatever. And so you having a good mindset is good marketing, and it's going to be good for your business.